So my name is Laureen Kapin, and I am the Assistant Director for International Consumer Protection at the FTC. Hopefully my slides will, now it's not letting me progress my slides. Let's see if I can do this another way. I may actually have to ask you to do the slides and stop screen sharing because for some reason this is stuck. So let me do a stop share. George, can I ask you to take that over?
Yes, we are going to share your slides. Please continue your conversation.
Perfect. Great.
Please continue.
So I'm now on the second slides with my official disclaimer. These are my remarks. They don't reflect the official position of the FTC. I'm going to give you a quick roadmap. That's the next slide. I'm just going to introduce you to what our agency does, talk about some of our tools and data, which is terrific. And then our enforcement work. And we're primarily a law enforcement agency. So I'm on slide 4. What is the Federal Trade Commission? We have this strange sort of name with trade, and that makes people think that perhaps we do imports or exports or tariffs, but we don't do that. We mean trade in the broadest sense. So that's commercial and consumer transactions, things that you buy or are sold. Those are the things we focus on to make sure that that is done in a truthful and lawful manner. This is the next slide, 5. We're primarily a law enforcement agency. So we challenge deceptive and unfair business practices that really harm the public's choice to make an informed decision about what they're going to buy. And usually that harm takes place through some falsehoods or lies. And our jurisdiction's really broad. We have jurisdiction over advertising and marketing, endorsement, influencers, reviews. I'm going to talk a little more about that. Environmental and green claims, the online space, telemarketing, credit and finance, debt collection, mortgages, payments, billings, and very importantly, we have a real prominent privacy function. So protecting people's personally identifiable information, which as we've heard is a key component that scammers use to try and pretend to be people they're not and also engage in other scams. Next slide. This is a little bit of an overview of our tools. We bring cases. We have rules outlawing certain conduct. We have guides for business, and we have education both for the public and businesses. This is slide 7. We bring about 100 to 200 cases a year, and we bring cases involving different market sectors or even cases that target certain underserved populations. You're going to get these slides, but know that there are links on our fabulous website, www.ftc.gov. You can remember for the consumer.gov, and you can get all sorts of information on our cases, our press releases, and more importantly, we have this slew of really useful publicly available data. So I want to focus on some of the tools we use to fight fraud. So we have education, and this is slide 8. Education for consumers and businesses. So these are some spotlights of some of our current consumer education. We have tips on how to cancel services. We just brought a huge case against Vonage, a VoIP provider that made it really easy to sign up for services, but made it really hard to cancel. So we have tips on how to cancel services. We have tips on phishing. There are a lot of phishing attempts from companies that people are very familiar with, like a Home Depot or a Costco. And we have really down-to-earth practical advice on how to avoid those scams. And then a big category of scams, of course, are imposter scams. So we have consumer education about that. And that's a big part of our work to prevent fraud, is giving the public the tools to identify frauds and avoid them themselves before they get scammed. Next slide is just focusing on what I'm sure this audience already knows, is that our cases cross borders, they're international in scope. And then next slide, that means we need to have certain tools to deal with that. And I'm going to go over this very quickly because I know we're short of time. But essentially, we can share with our colleagues abroad in other consumer protection and law enforcement agencies. We also can get information on their behalf from U.S. entities if they are having hurdles to doing that. So long as our mandates match somewhat, i.e., you're as a law enforcement agency investigating a fraud or deceptive act, we usually can help you get that information. So contact me if that's something of interest. And then we also try to reach out to our international counterparts to focus on matters where we're both going after the same bad actors. They may be operating abroad, but victimizing our folks, or vice versa. So this is slide 11. We work with law enforcement all across the United States and around the world, and including not just with governments, but with public interest groups. And then we rely on our consumer complaints to really give us some insights into what is going on in the fraud world. So now I'm on slide 12. I want to take a little detour to talk about our Consumer Sentinel Network because it's such a powerful tool. The premise is that if we share information with our law enforcement partners about the reports we're seeing, that could be of use not just to us, but for law enforcement all over the world. So we collect reports, complaints from victims on a whole bunch of different issues, everything from coronavirus scams to debt collection and credit reports. You can find out more information about our network, and if you're a law enforcement agency, on how you can get access to that network, and it's free, using the link on the bottom of this slide. Now I'm on slide 13. This is a real law enforcement tool because it gives us insights into patterns and trends, and that helps us decide what cases we're going to pursue. So you can see a little bit of a snapshot here of our 2021 data. We received 5.7 million reports. Identity theft was the top category, followed by imposter scams, and then complaints about credit bureaus. Again, this helps inform our work, and it's a resource not just for us, but for others that are using it. The next slide is slide 14. This is a plug for our publicly available data. This is available to everyone, not just law enforcement, but anyone who is interested in looking at this data. It's on our website. Again, it's fortheconsumer.gov, and you can look on news and events and data and visualizations, and you can get access to this data. This is just a little bit of a snapshot. And here you can see that in terms of contact methods, text and calls are the most common contact methods that we're seeing for folks to be initiated into some sort of fraud. But in terms of who's actually losing money, contact methods are different. They're an online or a pop-up ad on a website, an app, or social media. Those are contact methods that are more likely to result in a dollar loss. So something interesting to keep in mind that the data shows us. Slide 15. We sometimes bring our focus on targeted frauds. So frauds that are affecting different sectors in the public sphere. So we have noticed that there are certain frauds that target military members specifically, or older adults. And in fact, the FTC has done reports on this. So just by way of a quick example, for military, many times the frauds focus on assisting with filing for benefits for a fee. And of course, there shouldn't be any charge for that because that's a right that our veterans have. This week is Veterans Day in the United States on Thursday, and that's part of the reason I'm focusing on this particular sector. Also, there are frauds that we know are really targeted to older adults, and investment scams are a particular category. There we know that the contact method for this group is phone. And although older adults are less likely to be a victim of fraud, when they're victims, they lose a lot more money. Crypto scams, we've done a data spotlight on that recently because it's such a huge category. We've seen a huge surge, and a lot of these scams focus on investment opportunities because this is an area that not that many people have a keen understanding of, which makes the setting ripe for fraud. And then I want to talk very, very briefly, and George, just chime in when my time is up, and I will comply. But I do want to focus on a recent case we brought that focuses on facilitators of fraud. We recently brought a case against Walmart because money transfer services are a really popular method of fraud. And this case is not about the fraudsters, but about Walmart turning a blind eye while scammers took advantage of victims. The complaint alleges that Walmart allowed a lot of payouts of suspicious transfers, that they didn't properly train their employees to spot frauds, that they failed to warn customers that they could be victims, and they used procedures that allowed fraudsters to cash out at its stores. The reason I mention this is that part of our fraud work is not only aimed at the fraudsters themselves, but the facilitators of frauds and even companies that are legitimate companies. And that's slide 17. There are other things that are mentioned in my slides about our work on fake or incentivized reviews, because those actually taint the buying decisions, as you and I know, if we're looking to decide what ice maker to buy, for example, we're going to look at reviews. And if those reviews are fake, that means we are being deceived. And then finally, we have some really great innovative programs to deal with frauds. We have a referral program where if we see complaints that have huge dollar losses, we can make a referral to the FBI's asset recovery team. And if this is done quickly, sometimes together with the FBI, they can actually recover those funds. So I invite you, and this is the last slide on slide 20, to explore our resources. We have lots of great resources on our enforcement work, but particularly take a deep dive into that data. You can look at the subject matter of scams, you can look at the age groups affected, you can look at the contact methods, you can compare it year to year. It's a great resource. So thanks for the opportunity to share this information about the FTC's work to prevent fraud. And I'm sorry if I've gone on too long.
Thank you very much, Laureen.